Yo, what up guys? It's Tuna, and I think it's about time I show you guys the build that I'm gonna be league starting in the Acropolis League. And it's something that some of you guys probably already seen because I league started the last league. And I really enjoyed the build, and I also didn't really see it to completion. So this league I sort of wanted to do it justice, and that's the Exsanguinate Miner. So this is a build that was developed by a friend of mine, Captain Garbage, and it's something that I really enjoyed for many reasons. And I'll explain some of the mechanics here to you guys. And the main sort of selling point is that the map clear is just completely busted. It's just insane. You might ask yourself, a miner in the league where they removed left click detonate, but in the coming league we're going to be getting mines that are detonated when you're walking, right, which is a mastery that we'll be able to allocate as soon as we enter here, when we re-roll into mines. So we'll grab blast wave and we'll get that, and later on we'll be able to spec it here. So that's no problem at all. This character is just sort of something that I've built, and it's not the final gear by any means, and things are sort of, not min-maxed, and I just wanted to show you guys kind of like the mechanics, how it works, what it looks like when it's mapping, and in general why I think it's insane, and why I think it's one of the best league starters for, softcore blasters especially, and in general for anybody that wants to go fast and clear maps really well. So yeah, I'll just put in a strand map right now, something like this, to showcase what it looks like in these maps. And I'll put a Legion Scarab as well, as I bet some of you guys are probably interested in how it clears Legions. Now, this build, we really want to focus on getting as much attack speed as possible. We're using an essence here for 16% more attack speed, and also getting percent increased attack speed where possible. On top of that, we want to get attack speed also here through these nodes like Force Shaper, for example, but also a little bit through our jewels. So you were getting like increased attack speed while holding a shield and all of that kind of stuff, wherever possible. So attack speed is, yeah, just generally really good. Additionally, of course, we also have access to attack speed as well as onslaught here, so that's even more. And because we're shield charging, what that ends up looking like is, it goes pretty fast. So just a quick little map showcase to show you guys what it's like and how it clears. And as you can see, it's pretty damn insane. I'll talk a little bit through the mechanics and why it's able to do this and why it's able to clear this fast. So yeah, I'll just take a moment to basically just show you guys just how crazy it is, right? The Legion clear is extremely satisfying because of the way that the skill is actually, splitting to different targets. So you see, like, it pretty much just obliterates the entire Legion. And then, of course, you'll have to, like, maybe look for a couple rares here and there. But because of the fact that the mine is auto-targeting, you're just walking around and it just clears that all up. So, yeah, Exsanguinate is pretty damn good. It's, you guys know, like, I really like mapping, and I'm going to be doing a mapping focused league start in general. So that's why I choose to play this build. And yeah, that's basically the map right there. And it freezes everything, which is like a huge part of its defenses, right? And we're able to do that because of some nodes that we allocate on the tree, which I'll basically show you guys right here. So we are taking the cold mastery here for 40% conversion because we are doing physical to cold conversion. And until we actually have gloves that are able to convert, 60% of our physical to cold, what you need to use here is the Hrimsoro unique gloves, and those are very, very cheap, and you'll be able to get access to those, pretty much instantly for like 1 chaos. They're super, super accessible, so that's no problem at all. But we need to get as much freeze duration on the enemies as possible because of the fact that we are using Heat Shiver, and Heat Shiver is going to give us a ton of damage, up to 60% cold gained as extra once the monster is like at full chill effect as well as frozen. So essentially, this is gonna be amplified by the fact that we have, the additional freeze duration, and that's how we are able to freeze bosses and that sort of stuff. So it's really important to grab as much freeze duration as possible, for sure. Now, also, the reason why we are able to clear maps like we do is because we are using a chain. Now, in this case, I have Awakened Chain here, but of course, if you use normal chain, that's just one less chain. It's not that big of a deal, but once you do have like a little bit of money, you will get Awakened Chain in here. And if you do actually want to kill bosses, all you have to do is swap Awakened Chain or Chain for Trap and Mine damage, and then you'll just get like a crazy amount of more damage there from that. That's really nice. But because of the fact that we are chaining and we're using Exsanguinate, which splits up to 10 targets, so it says fires, tendrils at up to 10 targets, and then we are chaining 3 times, that means that essentially we are actually able to hit 30 targets per singular Exsanguinate, and then that also is amplified by the chaining range, and I think trick shot is an extremely important node here to get, because it's basically 45% more clear, right? It's these nodes are absolutely essential for the build. And yeah, we're choosing the Trickster Ascendancy because the Trickster has easy access to a lot of defenses too. The Trickster has a lot of spell suppression. Spell suppression is going to be keeping you safe while you're mapping, and it's basically going to give you a ton of damage reduction versus anything that, there's a lot of spells in Path of Exile, and you're going to be reducing it by a ton. And especially while you are on full energy shield, you'll be suppressing an extra 10%, which when combined with Inveterate here, that means that you are going to be suppressing up to 63% of incoming spell damage. So you basically be immune to spells. However, that does not make you immune to elemental attacks and that kind of stuff. So how do we mitigate that? That is through, stacking as much evasion as possible. And we are getting a lot of evasion through the fact that we are using evasion bases in general. And, that is going to be feeding into our ghost dance as well. So yeah, you'll be using a hybrid Sadist Garb, and that's going to feed you a ton of energy shield, as well as, in general, making you have a lot more EHP there. And Sadist Garb is just the most efficient base to craft here, because it has like the highest amount of flat evasion as well as energy shield. And we really want to have as much energy shield as possible, because this also, as I previously mentioned, feeds into Ghost Dance. And whenever we're hit, we have, we're basically going to be recovering a percentage of our evasion, which is 3%, as energy shield back. So that'll essentially mean that we're topping up our energy shield as we're being hit, as long as, we haven't evaded that attack. But since we are stacking a lot of evasion, we have up to 95% of it, once you itemize properly, which I advise you guys to really be careful and, try to aim for that number as soon as possible, because the difference between, lower levels of evasion, even 90 to 95 evasion is massive. It's so much evasion, and it's going to make your character feel so much stronger. Now, the reason why we're able to go so fast is thanks to Swift Killer, and also, just having as many frenzy charges as we do. So we are getting a ton of frenzy charges with this build, and we're generating them with Charge Mine Support. Charge Mine Support is going to give you increased mine throwing speed per frenzy charge. So that's 10% per frenzy charge, but it's also going to give you a ton more critical strike chance per power charge. And yeah, this will give you a ton of damage just because of that alone, and it's going to make your character feel very, very smooth. But not only that, this is also going to be providing you with a way to generate both frenzy and power charges, which is one of actually the selling points for me for mines, is being able to generate those as easily as we do here. It's not something that any other kind of archetype can actually do. So Charge Mines is definitely a very, very nice gem. And we are linking that to Minefield as well, because of how Exsanguinate works mechanically. Essentially, the way Exsanguinate works is that it is the only skill in the game that has instant targeting. And the damage will literally be like instant. From the moment you see the mine explode to it hitting the target, it's just going to be like, it's instant hit. So Minefield essentially allows you to create a detonation sequence. So mines will detonate one after the other. And because of that instant targeting, you'll essentially never target the same monster as long as you have enough damage to one-shot them. Meaning that as you're moving forward in the map and as you're clearing, you're throwing mines, it's just going to basically target all the monsters around you and keep your screen clean of all the monsters. And on top of that, it's going to freeze everything and keep you safe. And yeah, that's basically why we have such insane clear, and why I think it's one of the best characters for map clear in the game, and why I consider it to be, just like one of the best softcore blasters on League Start. Now, another few little itemization things, sort of decisions that are made with this build are the Kikazaru. Because we are playing Exsanguinate and this is going to cost you life to reserve, as you're throwing it, you want to have a little bit of life regeneration on your character. Kikazaru is a great way to do that, because not only does it provide you with life regeneration, but also gives you reduced effect of curses on you, which is a nice little bit of extra defense. That is, something that is a little bit underrated, in my opinion, because then you don't really have to worry about map mods as much as other builds or other people that don't have this reduction will. And yeah, the rest of the gear is pretty damn simple. I'll show you guys, of course, the PoE where you have early, mid, and late game itemization in there, and you guys will also, of course, have access to a max roll guide, which I'm really, really happy that we were able to actually put this together for you guys, because Captain has been working really hard, and you guys will see just the amount of information that he has put into this guide. So now, that I've given an overview of the mechanics and a little bit of a basic understanding of how the build works, I want to show you guys essentially the progression for the build, the leveling, and that sort of stuff, so that you have a better idea how to progress with the build. But yeah, of course, if you want the PoE, you can grab it in the video description right now and be on your merry way. But otherwise, yeah, I hope to provide you guys with a little bit more context and information that you might need to really excel at league starting this. Alright, so in the max roll guide, when you guys go to click the leveling tab, this is going to be providing you with all of these tips and tricks that are going to help you progress through the campaign. So you can see, like, for example, Captain has written down that you're looking for like goat horns in the early acts, of course equipping rings when you fight Mervale, and all of these basic things that are, just essentially going to help you progress smoother throughout the campaign. But it also details some very key points as to when you're going to be changing skill gems, because we're actually not able to play Exsanguinate until later on in the game. Because of just the way that Exsanguinate scales, it is much better to actually play the skill gem a little bit later on in comparison to playing Pyroclast Mine. And Pyroclast Mine is an insane skill gem. It deals so much damage, and it's going to carry you through the campaign. And we'll basically be picking it up at level 28, and we'll be carrying on until about, Act 9 or so, or Act 10, or until you can get a 5 link, which is ideally when you want to be swapping. As soon as you have access to Hrimsoros, which is going to be giving you 100% of physical damage converted to cold damage, and a 5 link ideally, so that you can swap to Exsang and have all of that damage converted to cold, and it's going to synergize very well with the passive skill tree that is provided here. Now, the slider here on the left, if you drag it on, it's basically going to be showing you the progression and what passive skills you want to be taking as, according to what level you are. So we can minimize this here once you've read all the tips and tricks, and we sort of follow the progression. So we will be rushing Saboteur, as you can see, and we'll go for Expeditious Munitions and the Trap Mastery, which recovers 30 life when a trap is triggered near an enemy. That's because at this point we are still using Explosive Trap. Explosive Trap deals, a decent amount of damage and is the gem that is most easily re-rollable from, to Pyroclast. We're trying to really make it so that you guys have like a smoother transition from one skill gem to another, and Explosive Trap is really nice for that, because you're only going to really need to be respecting these 4 points here, and then the rest of the tree is going to be hand in hand, like one to the same, and it's just a very easy way for you guys to, roll from one skill gem to the next. So once we have taken this Trap Mastery here, we're going to be going for the Elemental Mastery, which treats enemy monster resistances as inverted, 1 in 4 for 1 in 4 hits. Now, this mastery is, pretty insane, because certain monsters have like high resistances, and those monsters are generally the monsters that you have to worry about in Path of Exile. And yeah, it's basically gonna make you deal like 20% more damage to those monsters if you do spec this mastery. So it'll make those a lot easier. Now from here, we want to go through Written in Blood and grab that as soon as possible. That is for some life. And then we will be rushing Mind Drinker. That's because early game, I think traps are going to have a little bit of a hard time dealing with their mana. But as soon as you take Mind Drinker and you have increased mana reservations, efficiency of skills mastery allocated, it won't be a problem anymore. You'll basically be able to just like throw your traps and have no issues whatsoever. So at this point, you want to make sure that you are, reserving Skitterbots. And then once you get to Act 3, you want to be using Grace. But earlier, before Act 3, in Act 2, you want to be grabbing Herald of Ash with Skitterbots. And yeah, but in Act 3, you definitely want to be swapping Herald of Ash for Grace, because Grace is going to be providing you with a lot of flat evasion, and this flat evasion will make you feel a lot more defensive throughout the campaign, as monsters are much less likely to hit you the more of this stat that you have, right? So especially at lower levels, Grace is very effective. So grab that as soon as possible and just socket that in. But yeah, make sure that you are actually grabbing the mastery before you use Grace, because before that, you will kind of have a hard time throwing your traps. So until you have this mastery, make sure that you are actually still using Herald of Ash instead. Now we are reaching level 28, which is when we want to be swapping to Pyroclast Mines. Pyroclast Mines requires you to respec the trap nodes, as I previously mentioned here. And you can see that once we get to level 26, 27, you'll be respecing these, and you might actually have still like not enough regrets to respec all of them. But don't worry about that, you'll work your way through respecing these as you get them. And then we'll want to be putting those points forward into your Blast Waves. Blast Waves is going to give you additional damage because of the area effect granted by this node, and also of course because of also the damage that's granted. But most importantly, you want to be getting Detonate Mines is triggered while you are moving. This is the new mastery that I previously talked about, and it's going to be the replacement for having, you know, not having access to left click detonate. However, if you are one of those players that doesn't mind actually holding the detonate key, that's totally fine as well. You don't have to actually use this, and you can actually put 1 point forward to something else, and that is totally fine. So once we respect the Pyroclast Mines, we'll be working to our way towards coordination, because you want to do the library on this, you know, the library quest on this build. And you can also see that where all of the gems are actually acquired here in this section, it will tell you exactly which act and from which vendor or which shop you will have to buy those gems from. That's pretty good. And as we progress, we'll grab a little bit more life and into the coordination. Now, coordination, you might think like, why are we grabbing this? We don't cast, we don't attack, and we actually don't really need Dex or Int. But again, it's because we are using shield charge, and to make that feel smoother, we want to grab as much attack speed as possible. And honestly, it feels really nice to get. It's generally like a really nice stat to have. Like you're gonna want to stack this as much as possible, and that is why, like in the showcase, the character looked as fast as it is. Now, also, you'll be nearing laboratory around level 33, which is when you want to be swapping to charge mines. So as soon as you do your laboratory and you take Swift Killer, which is +2 frenzy charges, you want to swap to charge mines. Charge mines will give you the ability to, of course, generate those charges, but will also give you the additional bonuses like mine throwing speed, and it will make your build feel so much smoother, and it's pretty nice. So yeah, swap that in as soon as you have done lab, and then, you know, you'll feel like you'll just basically start blasting. Now, once we have done laboratory, we want to progress into these mine nodes. We're going to be getting some penetration, but we're at the point now where we have to consider going into critical strike. Since we are getting so much crit from charge mines, the fact that we have, you know, power charges, which give us 50% increased critical strike chance per, we want to be actually, you know, investing more into critical strike. So we'll be going towards successive detonation at this point, which is going to give you a ton of critical strike as well as critical strike multiplier. And then devastating device will be next, as well as Doomcast. And so this is just going to be filling out a lot of these critical strike nodes. And this mastery that gives you 150% increased critical strike chance against enemies that are full life is pretty good, because when you're clearing, you know, when you're clearing in general, like through the campaign as well as maps, your first hit is going to be basically have a much higher chance to critical strike, which is going to feel really good, especially early on when you don't have like very high values of crit. So it's going to be like a little bit of a band-aid fix, but we'll definitely keep it, you know, all the way to endgame, because in general, it's just a nice way for you to be able to guarantee crit cap on the first hit and make sure that you actually are getting big hits off on every monster as you're clearing maps and as they're full HP. Next, we'll be grabbing a little bit more life, because this life mastery here, 50 flat life at these levels is very substantial. Since you don't have very high life values, 50 life is going to make you, you know, increase your total by just a ton in general. Grab that life, and then we go for additional frenzy charges as well as power charges. And then we will also be grabbing assassination. Assassination is, of course, a little bit more crit, and so some more crit multi. After assassination, you want to work your way up to influence. That's to get a little bit more aura effect for your grace, but also to get a little bit more increased mana reservation efficiency to further fit reservations here, as you can see, and make your mana feel a little bit better. And then at this point, we're basically going to be doing the Great Migration. We'll travel all the way down to Ranger, and we want to start filling out some of the suppression. And yeah, we'll be able to get a lot of this suppression, of course, because we'll also be grabbing the chance to suppress spell damage is lucky, which is basically a bit of a band-aid early, for you to be able to pseudo cap your suppression just by grabbing a few nodes, which is pretty good. So we're grabbing those and then into the frenzy charge and more life. And here you need to be mindful that this node is only really good if your body armor doesn't actually have a flat life roll or flat life regen node roll on it. So make sure that you're only actually speccing this if you don't have one of those rolls on your gear. Yeah, make sure you double check that. Otherwise, you just don't take that mastery at all and don't worry about it. Then we grab a Heartseeker for more crit and crit multi. And at this point, this is when you want to be looking into respecking to Exsanguinate. So if at this point you have a 5-link and Hrimsorrows, this is when you want to be swapping to Exsanguinate, ideally. So yeah, make sure you are, looking at getting those items as soon as possible. And when you do, then that's when you'll be grabbing these nodes there. And we'll progress into here, filling out the rest of our suppression. And then through the critical strike chance and physical damage, as well as Fangs of the Viper for some more movement speed and fizz damage. There it is. And that basically concludes the early game variant of the build. You know, I actually took you like a little bit further than I would have in general. So like at level 70 is when you're looking to reroll into Exsanguinate. And then at this point, this is when you want to be clicking into the progression tab. When you enter the end game in Path of Exile, aka maps, you click into the progression tab, and this is where we have the basically like the everything that you need to know about the build, all of the information that I basically just said, like, but there's going to be so much more for you guys to learn about the build and how to itemize it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not really going to be going over all of these items here. For people that are like interested in looking at that, I absolutely think that you guys should check it out. And another really cool function of this guide is that as you're checking off these milestones, like for example, the initial mandatory swap for Exsanguinate, which is Hrimsorrows and a Kikizaru, and ideally a 5-link, or a 6-link, of course, if you can afford it at this point. That's when you want to check it off. And you can sort of check off all your milestones as you're going along. This is going to make you have sort of like a nice list to go through as you're progressing your character, right? So as we enter endgame, this is one to be looking into getting a little bit better gear with like fracture rolls and stuff like that. And as you check them off, you can sort of see them appear here on the top right. And yeah, it's just a nice way for us to sort of structure the build guide in a way that you guys have step-by-step way to get your build up and running and up to the standard that we believe you should be at by basically following all these things. And yeah, it's just a great way for us to sort of like make sure that you guys are getting nothing wrong and you're getting all the information possible in order to succeed at building this character. Because honestly, like once you guys put this together, it's like it's an absolutely crazy character. But that's basically enough about the build and enough about the atomization and the basics of the build. And I sort of want to show you guys a few things in the path of building as well, because there's also like a really in-depth path of building that that you guys should check out here. So in addition to the guide, the path of building also provides you guys with a lot of information for those that actually just prefer to look at it this way. And we are able to achieve that by giving you guys like additional trees here at the bottom. So you need to make sure that like if you want to look at the leveling tree, you can see that like there's level 1 to 12 section, into 12 to 27, 28 to 50, 51 to 70, and so on and so forth. This is going to be the early map variant of the build into mid game and into end game. And at this point, you're basically, this is like the end game tree, and it's going to be taking you all the way to level 98. But if you want to have like a proper overview of which passives you should take step by step, you can go here into the max roll guide, go into mid, and you can use the top buttons here to sort of see like what node priority you should be taking and when you should be taking them and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, to go back into the POB to show you guys that there are also early, mid, late variants of the gear too. So if you go here, you can go into the leveling section, into early maps, mid game, and end game as well. And likewise, there will be leveling gem setups from Act 1 all the way to Act 10 into the early Exsang swap, mid game, and end game too. So yeah, that pretty much sums up all the information that you guys need to know about the build. In endgame, we're going to be getting about 20 million damage with Exsanguinate, and that is through some pretty decent gear. But you can kind of like get an idea of what it looks like if you were to be in the mid game. Of course, like this build has like insane scalability. It's one build that you can take like up to like 60 plus million damage. Of course, if you're getting into the territory of using stuff like Mage Blood and some like other pretty expensive items, but it's nice project build to take, you know, from the early into the late game. And it's one of those builds that I'm sort of like just addicted playing it. Like every time I log in, I just want to play the build. It's just like really, really fun. And of course that's very subjective, but I think this build has like the potential to beat out Lightning Arrow in some cases where it's clear. And you know, if you guys have like watched my stream, you probably see me like logging into this build and just blasting for a bit. So I'm really looking forward to playing this on the league start. And I think like a lot of you guys are gonna enjoy it as well, because it really is straight up just like a blaster build. It's one of those builds that you'll just yeah, you'll just really enjoy if you like blasting maps. Like it does legions very well. It does influence farming also very, very well. And I just dropped the divine orb, so that's pretty damn cool. Uh that's just like luck of recording your YouTube video. I hope that happens on League Start actually. uh, I love this build, guys. Like, and I really hope that you enjoyed as well. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am a little bit flustered, like trying to get all this information together for you guys, and also in general with the guide, like, you know, figuring out all the max roll stuff, the POBs. And I really have to thank Captain for putting in the work, because, you know, I basically, I'm good friends with Captain, and he, by the way, I'm talking about Captain Garbage, not Captain Lance. A lot of people get them confused, you know, because they're like, which captain is he talking about? Is he slandering Captain Lance? No, I love Captain Lance, but yeah, I'm talking about Captain Garbage. And you know, I got him to like become a writer for Max Roll because I think he's really talented. He has a lot of brains and he's just super smart and also very dedicated to Path of Exile. Well, like, you know, I would call him a complete degenerate, but I say that as a compliment. And in general, yeah, he wrote this build guide in like 3 days. I was really trying to like push him, like, you gotta do this. Like, it's a really good build, and I want people to, you know, sort of see into your brain and into your build and be able to play it this league start. So that's yeah, that's basically probably more than you guys need to know about the build and the build guide and the build creator. And I hope you guys like have enjoyed this video. And I'm just saying, and a million times at this point, holy shit. I'm just gonna show you guys one more Legion killer because, like, what the fuck, it's so good. Yo, there it is. All right, thank you very much, boys. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Of course, you can drop by the Twitch channel if you have any questions, or leave them in the comments down below. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace out.